Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge and I'm your host. I'm the author of 12 books, a CEO of 13 years, a founder of a startup set on data privacy, most importantly an elite performance coach of over 19 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, the United States to Australia. Most excitingly, I am the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance, specifically behind how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. My work includes everything from mitigating injuries to conditioning behaviors that set a player up long term for the long game towards a top 10 tennis ranking. I'm behind theories from the optimal performance theory, optimal behavior for optimal performance, the barrier breaker, the rule of transference to the golden rule. As has become custom, each episode we dive into the latest rankings and results on the WTA and ATP tours and deliver new data implications as shared in my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, with over 80 episodes to date. Today's insights and key topic plays its own role, like so many other episodes, in developing the player, parent to coach for that road ahead towards a top 10 tennis ranking. So, as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look, if you've been with us for some time now, you know what we are all about, how far we've come, how we've been diving into those rankings and the latest, results and sharing those key data implications in real time. So if you are new, as always, I'd really encourage you to track back to some of our earlier episodes, around episodes 50 through to 60, before we took that change of pace at the beginning of the 2024 season, shortly after the release of How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking. So that's my latest book that came out. I can't believe it's been a few months now, but it really unpacked that final hurdle, that milestone, so the 8th key there. That essentially shared what it really takes to develop that top 10 tennis ranking, whilst really filling in those gaps. Not that there were that many left, but there was really a missing piece, if you like, that was left over from my other releases. And can you believe that's essentially 10 others? That other one, the 11th in there, was my fictional release. So that's 11 texts essentially that take you from those earlier developmental stages through to high performance, ITF, those earlier years on the WTA and or ATP tours, through to that top 200, top 100 ranking, and then you get into the nitty gritty as you progressively ascend towards the top 10. And we've touched on how to develop that top 10 tennis ranking, so becoming a barrier breaker, crossing that threshold, how the differential between the 8% to the 2% inside the top 10, the maiden Grand Slams, to achieving replicated success, so multiple Grand Slams. And I think almost, if not all of those, I think, key milestones a player looks to accomplish throughout their career, and how for the best part of the last 12-13 years I've been crunching the numbers, building that data, and AIMA International is behind those world firsts to really share with players, coaches, parents out there what it really takes, and to guide you each and every step of the way. And I think the most exciting part, and again, those of you who've been listening for some time, you know this, you know again what we are all about, that no other coach universally, so around the world, has access to this specific data, which is incredibly exciting because it's built to work in conjunction with you and your coach, you and your team, in whatever shape that happens to be, whether it is a player, parent, working together along, I guess, that pathway towards a top 10 tennis ranking. And we do have the long game and the pathway on AIMA International that really shares, I think, the key intersection between the two and what it takes in that first 10 years of play towards that second decade of play. So that's essentially 20 years of play, and the key milestones that happen along the way, and the different phases you essentially need to build on and go through, and those pivotal steps. So when we're looking at building those technical foundations, what it really takes, how to reach a certain level of autonomy. And one point I want to touch on before we dive into Madrid today is, I think there's a really good argument out there, and it's backed by science, of course, around that 10,000, not necessarily hours, but you can look at hits in a manner of speaking. There's a correlation between the two, but for argument's sake, let's go with 10,000 hits for this example. So you could say you have hit your forehand ground stroke a certain way 10,000 times. Now you are looking at building and acquiring a new technique, whether it's obviously maintaining that serial skill, but that discrete skill, there's a certain aspect of that ground stroke you're looking at fine tuning. But so essentially what that means is that you need to build on that and do that additional 10,000 with that skill before it becomes your default. And it's really interesting because some players, coaches have this very big misconception that I'm working on this part of my game, this is great, and so forth. But what they forget is that a player, if they are consciously focused on a certain element of their game, that is taking up headspace, if you like, where they can use that for actual gameplay and what they are specifically doing on court at that given moment. So the goal is to obviously head towards that top 10 tennis ranking. You need to reach an absolute state of autonomy with your technical metrics, so it's second nature. And this does not happen overnight. It takes a number of years. And that is why it is so critical to build those key technical foundations early on. Because you may be a top 20 player and wondering what's stopping you from crossing over into the top 10. And 99% of the time, it has to do with your technical applications and your level of frequency. And so integrated in that is that level of autonomy. So you need to build towards that. So granted, there's a give and take that's going to happen. You're going to need to lose some of that head space to focus on those technical applications, and your ranking may temporarily regress whilst you are building that next level of play, integrating these new metrics, if you like, before it begins to correlate with your ranking, and you can then free up that headspace to focus on your positioning on the court, where that ball is going, so constructing your game more effectively. Now, 8% of the players inside the top 10, so it's essentially inside the top 100, but this is specifically top 10, will more often than not hold on to this level of autonomy. 2% of these players every season, however, will regress. They will not be able to maintain that level of autonomy. So that's really shared and dived deep into in my latest release, so how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. The key metrics, those technical parameters you need to integrate into your game, they're touched on in the 7 keys to optimize your life, and more specifically the what is your game missing series. So there's what is your game missing, what is your game missing now, and what is your game missing to win. And I Am Your Tennis Coaching Guru shares the pathway, so that 10 years of lessons and play for the developmental through to high performance player, and how you can integrate these key technical parameters throughout a given period of time. So it's really an absolute guidebook, irrespective of what level you are at. And obviously the books we focused on and have been in our earlier episodes, The Secrets to Optimal Performance Success, which we finalized, but then also The Secrets to Optimal Coaching Success, which we're about halfway through before we took this pivot so far this season. They are the foundation, so that they are also prerequisites. Integrated in there is the secrets to optimal well-being, and something that brings it all together is the science of elite performance. And that's where you're getting really technical. And there's also the elite research method, though that is an inadvertent application. That is when you've reached the absolute pinnacle of play and you're looking at crunching your own numbers. And there's actually a scientific modeling that I've built and developed in there for coaches and players alike to fine tune to be able to better, say, annotate their own games in real time. And it's an incredibly helpful tool. All right, so that's a lot, but I really wanted to do preface today's episode. Even though we're going to head right straight into the results, we don't have any rankings to touch on because they have not been updated since last week, because Madrid obviously is still underway. But it's really important, especially this time of year, for players who are wondering why, whether you are top 500, top 100, top 50, irrespective of that ranking range, it's really important to remember that when you are looking at taking on board that new technical application, there is that give and take with your results and ranking at that given time, which isn't the best for some players because you're used to reaching that pinnacle of play, say if you are top 20, top 10. But if you are yet to do the work in those earlier years, or if your state of autonomy is not conducive or does not correlate with that top 10 tennis ranking and the longevity that's there, you need to make those key changes, which is really exciting once you get that underway. But the work really needs to be done. All right, so as always, we're going to start with the WTA Tour, then jump on over to the ATP Tour. The WTA does have some smaller events that have kicked off today and in the last couple of days, but we'll touch on them next week. Today, I really want to focus on Madrid because there's a lot to get through. I think collectively we have well over, I think, 200 to 300 matches that have unfolded, obviously across both tours. We'll see how far we get in today's episode, but we did touch on qualifying last week and some of, not all, only a small part of the first round results on the WTA Tour. We did not get to the ATP Tour last week. So we're going to kick off today's episode with the other half of the first round results on the WTA, and we'll give a full, I think, analysis on the ATP Tours. But there are some really good insights. So if you have not listened to last week's episode, I really would encourage you to do so you know, I guess, where we're going and where we're picking up from. Okay, first round, here we come. We're going to go relatively quick through here, but I'm going to, as always, pull out some really, I think, key matches to focus on. First up, we've got Seville over Baptiste at 6-4, 7-6. Now, Seville was sidelined for, let's say, the best part of the last 18 months. She did reach a ranking high inside the top 30, and she's just, I think, last week cracked back into the top 100. She is actually the number one Aussie now as far as the rankings are concerned. So this is actually a really good first round result for her, given that it is a 1,000 event. This will do her favours with her ranking, which is really good to see. Montgomery over Evanasian, 2-2. Danilovic over Burel in 3 sets. Now we've got Berge over Blinkova. A little bit of a surprise there, 3 sets. Andreeva, very big win for her. She's now 17 years of age over Townsend. 4-6, 6-1, 7-5. That is, I think, her best win of the season. She's been hovering around 34, 35 in the world. This win may very well push her inside the top 30. Now, I said something very similar with Gauff a number of years ago when she was around 15, 16 years of age, and I encouraged her to hold off. So inadvertently, we want to play around this age to hold off, sit around this ranking range, get those wins under their belt before they make that run top 20, top 10. So ideally in Andreeva's case, a very good win. It's okay for those hiccups. We want those hiccups, those learning curves to happen. So then in the next 2 seasons, top 20. If top 20 happens within a season, Andreeva is more susceptible to regressing, ironically, believe it or not, in contrast to taking a little bit more time. Now, if you want to look into, I think, the numbers and the data and the key patterns of play there, look through our previous texts and the data, etc., that unfolds that. But this is a really encouraging sign. But at the same rate, I want to encourage all of our listeners out there to go, it does not matter what age you are at. When you're ascending towards top 30, top 20, top 10, we need to be progressive. If it is rapid fire, the likelihood of you maintaining that ranking is incredibly scarce. Last week's episode, we touched on the anomaly, which can happen, but that's really less than 1% of players that you need to account for, which is really pivotal to understand. So when we're looking at this data and these metrics, it's a very good reminder to take your time, but rapid fire inadvertently whilst maintaining that progressive form. All right, Kruger over Hibino, 4-4. Fretch did fall to Christian, 7-5, 6-2. Bronzetti over Gracheva in straight sets. This is a really good one. Irani over Wozniacki, 3-6, 7-5, 7-5. Wozniacki, I think, is around 120 or almost inside the top 100, but not quite yet. Irani has been outside the top 100 for most of the year, has picked up just inside, and I think it's literally been for the last 18 months ish, and she has made her rise the last couple of weeks on clay court. We know that's her service. She is back, believe it or not, to 51 in the rankings. That is absolutely sensational. I think that's Irani's biggest ranking rise in the last 4 to 5 years. It's literally been, I think, 12 years, believe it or not, since Irani made the French Open final. So, oh my goodness, she's had a rough couple of years where she took time away from the game and has been back. But I think this says it all. And it's a very good, I think, timely reminder. Wozniacki and Irani were active, I think, around the same time, even though there's still a couple of years Irani holds over Wozniacki, but still Wozniacki made a comment about the level of play, and I really need to, and I've said how much I disagree with that, because the level of play now is absolutely phenomenal in a different way. And I've touched on that previously. I may get to that later. But I think the way the women's game has changed, it is a compilation of power and tactics that we haven't had. It's a new level, which I think when you're looking at the data, you can see those intricacies. But if you are not essentially looking at these key technical parameters and applications, you may mistake it for something other. But it's a really, I think, interesting insight when we're looking at Irani on her way back. We know Wozniacki's come out of retirement to play again, but I really need to give all that credit for Irani clawing her way back. It's really exciting to see. All right, Doha over Bay, straight sets. Cocchiaretto fell to Lynette. Lynette's on a run as well this season, 3 sets a win there. Raducanu fell to Carl. Now, this is somewhat surprising because we know Raducanu had a really good week leading up to Madrid, and she had some solid results there. Started to find her form, and now she's lost first round here, which is, I'll say, quite disheartening. It looks like, or let's see how the next couple of weeks pan out for Raducanu on clay. She definitely has the capacity. She has been building momentum. This has cut it short. So I think it's incredibly important to look to see if Raducanu can find a level of momentum with her game again, because the metrics, those technical parameters she started to show through, look to position her inside the top 100 again, hopefully or ideally within the next 3 to 4 months, definitely this season. However, if she's not able to string together enough of those wins, it is going to lag there. Does Raducanu have those metrics to push her inside the top 50? Yes. Potentially top 30? Yes, at this stage. If she's able to maintain that momentum, get enough of those wins under her belt consistently. She's not playing in line with the top 20, not yet. Top 30 at her current absolute peak, but that's not to say in the next 1-2 seasons she may go higher, but let's get into the top 100 first. Okay, Wang over Tomova in 3 sets, Buska over Dar in straight sets, Rogers over Zhang straight sets, Anisimova fell to Aragano 1-6, 6-4, 7-6. Osaka, good win, first round over Minen 4-1. A very good win for Osaka. She's been getting some good first round wins, but we're going to get to her next match shortly. Vekic over Seigman in straight sets. Very good win for Vekic there. Sorabes Tormo straight sets over Pera. Sheriff over Davis 3 sets. Stevens over Trevisan 3 sets. Noteworthy, Stevens is back to, I think, is around 33-ish in the world. She was sitting around 60-50 so far this season, and she has progressively been building on that ranking. She's got that title under her belt now this season, and we're seeing her peak. And it's a very timely reminder that Stevens does have a Grand Slam to her name, and she has gone almost all the way from memory at the French Open. That is escaping me. I know it's either Grand Slam, US Open, and finalist, I think, at the French, but that's something I'm going to have to check, because interestingly, I know Stevens has had some success a number of years ago on clay. All right, Jimenez Kataskinska over Zhu in 2 straight sets. Putintseva over Wan. That's actually a very good win, 2-4. Putintseva is on a roll this season, nonetheless. Buzaz Maniero over Badosa, 3 sets. This is a tough one for Badosa, because she took Sabalenka last event to 3 sets and had to retire 3-3 in the 3rd. And Sabalenka, we know, number 2 player in the world. That was an absolutely, I think, stellar performance from Badosa. But to lose the first round in Madrid to Buzaz Maniero, who is not seeded, 3 sets nonetheless. really Badosa's ranking is going to take a hit here, but we're looking for her to string those results similar to Raducanu back together. Granted, Badosa has a higher ranking. However, when we're looking at consistency in those wins, in those specific technical applications, Badosa is actually ahead of Raducanu, and it shows in her ranking. However, when we're looking at that win-loss ratio and the number of wins she's been able to string together, that's not on her side so far this season. Okay, on to the second round, and we're getting interesting. Swiatek, good win, 1-4 over Wang. Fernandez over Potapova, 5-3. Stevens, a really good win over Mertens, 3-6, 6-3, 6-1. Jabeur over Shmidlova, 3 sets. This was somewhat concerning, but really good to see Jabeur finding a little bit of her form. We'll touch to the more part later. Gorf over Rus, this was brutal, 0-0. Karl over Kurmatova, very good win for Karl, 4-4. Sestaya over Ayla, 3 sets. Haddad Maria over Irani, 3-2. Osaka fell to Samsonova. Now Samsonova is the 15th seed, so rightfully she was expected to win. Osaka has not, I think she's sitting just inside the top 200 in the rankings at this stage. Probably her results are not where she anticipated them to be, but she has been able to establish somewhat of a baseline so far this season. So I think potentially in the next 2 to 3 months, depending on Osaka's result at the French and Wimbledon, we may see Osaka crack into the top 100, but then I think it'll be next season where she makes a more streamlined run towards the top 50, top 20, potentially, if she really finds that peak performance once again. Ostapenko, good win over Buzes Maniero, 3-1. Navarro over Podoroska, 2-1. Yastremska over Arano, 3 sets. Interesting low. Aragano took the first set 6-love, and then Yastremska came back 7-5, 6-4. Sorobes Tormo over Svitolina, 3-5. This was a very big one. Svitolina has not been playing, I think, that peak level that we've been used to her playing, especially the last few months, or so far this season. She has been taking those losses a little bit earlier than anticipated. That said, it's still above and beyond 50% of the top 10 players. She is definitely up there. So this is a bit of a tough loss. Second round of Madrid. So I'd love to see Svitolina find that form again. But on the flip side as well, she's had so far a very big jam-packed season, even though we're, let's say, a quarter and a bit through. So let's have some leeway. We know the role of periodization, those cyclical performances. So this serves as a reminder, I think, for all players out there and coaches, that we do have phases, and we plan for those peak performance phases, and we do have those lulls. And it's really important to factor these in. Djokovic is a very prime example, and he knows how to, I think, leverage this time-wise and events where you do take those, I guess, events off to be able to recoup and prepare to find that next peak performance. But it's definitely an art form, and you really need the right team around you to understand when that peak is, what you're working on, and if you need additional time off, and how to tweak your schedule. Azarenka over Maria, 3-1. Keys over Begu, 7-6, 7-6. And Sakari, a very good win over Vekic, 3-2. Okay, other side of the second round, Collins over Dalinovic, 3 sets. It was 7-6 in the third, 10-8. That is huge. Collins is on an absolute run this season. It is stellar. All right, Balta fell to Montgomery in 3 sets. Vondrasova, good win over Rogers, 1-3. Kalinskaya fell to Bajcek, 1-4. Christian over Krejcikova, 3 sets. This is a very big one. I've touched on over the last couple of weeks the importance of Krejcikova finding that form, and especially on the clay court, to progress back inside the top 20. We know she's been inside the top 10, inside the top 5. We know she's got a Grand Slam to her name, but that ranking has progressively been regressing the last 2, 3, 4 seasons, more so the last, I want to say, 18 months, and it's starting to slip from comfortably around top 20 to pushing closer to top 30, and these type of results are going to push Krejcikova's ranking around that top 30, in contrast to progressing her closer back inside the top 20. So it's a really good reminder that these progressive regressions are also a key tail sign of losing grip of the 7 keys and those technical parameters that need to be integrated in a player's game if they are going to ascend towards a top 10 tennis ranking. So a very good win for Christian, but a reminder for players similar around Krejcikova's level why this happens and how to correct that course. Zheng fell to Putintseva. She did retire in the second set. Putintseva got the first set 7-5, then she was up 2-0. I'm not sure what happened and what the retirement was for. However, Zheng's results so far this season do not correlate with that top 10 tennis ranking. She is a Grand Slam finalist now, but she is a part of the 50% of players inside the top 10 at this stage that are susceptible so far this season to regress outside, which essentially means there are 5 places up for grabs, which is a very big anomaly inside the top 10 on both tours, and that's really important to highlight for players to take their place. That level of play is not consistent. There are quite very big gaps in those peak performances and the data and those key metrics, what we're looking for, which we do not see. We very rarely, normally it's that 2% we're looking to push outside in contrast to that 8%, but we are looking more at 5% at this stage when we're obviously looking at that collective 10% in contrast to the top 100. So it's a very good sign. If you've been making your move, now is the time, irrespective WTA, ATP Tour. If you get enough wins under your belt, if you are top 20, make your mark now, have a good performance at the French and Wimbledon, that top 10 tennis ranking is almost guaranteed to be yours this season. And this does not happen very often, and I cannot highlight that enough. Kostyuk surprisingly fell to Sheriff. Sheriff's been coming up a lot. She has been tracking and is on the radar. Kostyuk had a stellar performance over the last 2 weeks, so this is a bit of a lull, but potentially with this new ranking high, it's a bit of a playoff, a consequence in that respect when you do have that peak and then you fall down, similar to what I said about Svitolina. All right, Kalinina fell to Dolhide in 3 sets. Kruger over Alexandrova. That's a very good win. Alexandrova, is the 14th seed. Kazatkina over Buska, 3 sets. 5-7, 7-6, 6-3. Paolini over Jimenez Katintseva. 6-love, 6-1. A very good win for Paolini, who has been, or she continues to showcase, I should say, that newfound ranking high. Lynette fell to Sabalenka in 3 sets. Good win for Sabalenka, but equally tough in 6-4, 3-6, 6-3. Seville fell to Pavlyuchenkova, and I know I really talked up the Aussie. That said, she's just back inside the top 100, and we know Pavlyuchenkova is again on a rankings high. We know she has been ranked higher than around that 20-ish range in the world. I think her ranking high has been around 12, 13 in the world. And we know she is also a Grand Slam finalist, and clay is definitely Pavlyuchenkova's surface, along with others, very versatile. So 1-4 to Pavlyuchenkova. Andreeva over Noskova, a very good win again for Andreeva's second win, and this is underlying the potential for Andrea to crack into the top 30 when the rankings come out fresh next week. Garcia over Wang 1-4, and Rybakina over Bronzetti 4-3. Okay, on to the third round, and this is where it's starting to get interesting. Gauff over Yastremska 4-1. Fernandez fell to Jabeur, but 7-5, 2-6, 6-4. Fernandez should be very proud of herself. This result for Jabeur, however, is a very good one. Jabeur's had a very tough start to the season, even a bit of last season, but she's starting to find that form again on clay, where she's getting a couple of wins under her belt, which we want to see. We haven't really seen so far this season Jabeur collect wins after wins after wins. There's been a lot of breaks there, so this is a promising sign, and I'm hoping to see more of it. Swiatek over Swiatek, brutal 1-1. Haddad Mayiga, very good win over Navarro 4-4. Ostapenko over Karl 3-3. Good to see Ostapenko finding a bit of form again, and we know Ostapenko a number of years ago now, remember, she has won Roland Garros. Okay, Sorobes Tormo, an exceptional win over Azarenka 7-6, 6-3. Keys over Samsonova 2-3, and Sakari a solid win over Stevens 1-3. Okay, the other side of the third round, we've got Sabalenka over Montgomery. Wow, 3 sets, 6-1, 6-7, 6-4. That is tough. That said, I think it's doing Sabalenka a lot of good having these 3-set matches, because she's coming off a bit of a lull where she hasn't been tracking that well this season since winning that second Grand Slam. And we're starting to see, even though there have been more 3-setters, there's more work in there for Sabalenka to get that feel back, to find her game, to find that rhythm. And these matches are showing Sabalenka's got it in her. And I'm going to predict with our analytics that Sabalenka's coming to a new peak within potentially the next 1 to 2 months. If she keeps tracking this way, potentially she will perform quite well at Roland Garros. But if this continues to go up, down and break, it will not be the case. Collins over Christian, 3 sets, continues that winning streak. Paolini, very good win over Garcia, even though Paolini is seated ahead of Garcia 12 and 21 respectively. Garcia is the more seasoned player. Paolini on that ranking high, but 3-2. Paolini again deserves her current ranking high. Vondrousova fell to Ondreeva. This is a very good win again for Ondreeva. 7-5, 6-1 over a top 10 player. And Vondrousova, even though she is a part of that 50% inside the top 10 who has not been tracking so far this season, she's still had some, I'll say, relatively good wins this season. So this is a really good peak for Ondreeva, and something we have not seen since, I think, the Australian Open, where we got a bit of a surprise in a really good way. But let's see how far Ondreeva goes. But we want it to stop in a very good way to reach a plateau, and then to maintain that performance plateau, because performance plateaus do serve a purpose. You can hold on to them for that 3 to 6 month period before that new peak performance cycle. Then let that be your new plateau, so that new baseline before you peak again. Okay, Kazatkina over Pavlyuchenkova, very good win, 7-6, 7-5. Back to the performance plateau. To learn more about that, dig through our blogs. There's a lot of information there, and we've touched on that in earlier episodes when we were really touching on the performance success and coaching success and key snippets from those respective texts. So it's a really good reminder to dive deep, or even type in those keywords on AIMA International and look at the pieces that come up. Putintseva over Dolhide, 2-2. Berge over Kruger, 3-1. And Rybakina, a very good win over Sheriff, 6-1, 6-4. Which brings us to the round of 16. my favorite time of the tournament. Why? Because we know the first 1, 2, 3 rounds, we're working things out. Players are finding their rhythm. By the time you get to the round of 16, you have a certain level of play that you're being able to manage, and it's really saying who can push who further with this current baseline. There's a lot to say there, and it's not to say the first, second, third round are not insightful, but when you get to this level, we can really differentiate those players who are pushing those peaks, the peak performance parameters, but also sharing new patterns of play or continuous patterns of play. Okay, Collins did fall to Sabalenka in the round of 16. Sabalenka has stopped Collins' incredible winning streak so far, I think the last 2-3 months. But look, 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. Collins did not go down without a fight. Again, a very good win for Sabalenka, but Collins should be so proud of herself. And I think it's a really timely reminder for all of you out there that Collins was a top 10 player. She has been ranked inside the top 10. I think it was around 21, 22 where she was inside the top 10. We know she's a Grand Slam finalist, so she does actually know how to bring it, deliver it, and to back those performances up at the Grand Slam with her ranking and these type of results, in contrast to, once again, 50% of the current top 10 on both tours are not able to reach that level of play. Very good, I think, statistic, food for thought when we're looking at top 10 rankings maintenance, those more susceptible to regressing outside the top 10, players who are able to maintain that ranking and win Grand Slams. Putintseva, very good win over Kazatkina, 3-6, 6-2, 6-2. Very good. Not surprising, however, because Putintseva has been tracking so far this season. Rybakina over Bijlek, 1-3. That is a very solid win. Gauff fell to Keys. This is absolutely a sensational win for Keys. 7-6, 4-6, 6-4 over Gauff. Gauff has reached the round of 16, so it does not Gauff is still in contention, is what I'm saying. Is that when you get a top 10 player reach the round of 16, that is a positive metric that we want. If you're a top 10 and you regress before the round of 16, that is somewhat of a concern if it happens consistently. But granted, Gauff has made the round of 16. Ideally, we want quarterfinals, but a match like that, a 3-set against Keys, still puts Gauff on track for more positive performances this season, especially with Roland Garros around the corner. Andreeva, an exceptional win over Paolini. Can you believe she has made now the quarterfinals of Madrid? I've just underscored how well Paolini has been playing, and Andreeva 7-6, 6-4. This is an absolute exceptional result. Swiatek over Sorribes Tormo, 6-1, 6-love. Swiatek is absolutely on form. Very contrasting performances between the first and second seed, and the rankings is that Swiatek's absolutely been clean cut. Sabalenka's been pushed to 3 more consistently, whereas Swiatek's more consistently in those straight sets. She has been pushed previously, so it's very interesting when we're looking at surface correlations and those results. But look, at the end of the day, we all know you can have those very clean-cut wins, but a win also is a win, even if it is in 3. Haddad Maguire over Sakari, 4-4. A very good one for Haddad Maguire, clawing her way back. I think Sakari was on track and had more wins previously over Haddad Maguire, but this evens it out. And Haddad Maguire was closer to the top 20 a few, I'll say, months ago, and she's progressively been tracking back towards the top 10, and she's definitely potentially on track to become a barrier breaker this season. How's this for Jabeur over Ostapenko? 6-love, 6-4. That is sensational. That is, I think, the best win for Jabeur so far this season. But I also want to track back to what I just said. Straight sets, 3 sets. Whilst a win is a win, also these results tell us something of how far a player can push us or can't push us. Each match serves its purpose, but we get to see a player's level of play, their baseline, what pushes them and what does not push them, which is a very interesting discussion to be had. But rightfully so, Swiatek is placed number 1. Okay, and again, Jabeur, Ostapenko, very good result for her to reach the round of 16 because we had not seen this type of performance from her. I would say the last 1 to 2 months. Jabeur so far this season has been regressing, but this tournament, Madrid, has been a very good, I think, performance for Jabeur now into the quarterfinals. And we have half of those quarterfinals we can report on. Next week, we will, I think, touch on the remainder of the quarters and those results. But for now, we've got Keys. What a win over Jabeur. This is going to help Keys' ranking track closer towards the top 10. Potentially after Madrid, Keys may very well be ranked inside the top 15. We know Keys has been inside the top 10 for a number of seasons previously, has been hovering inside quite comfortably the top 20 for the past couple of seasons, but this is really solid. Jabeur got the first set, 6-love, that's brutal. Keys came back 7-5, 6-1. That is an absolute mind game, but a very stellar performance. Next was super tough, very concerning, that first set for those of us who were tracking Swiatek and her results. Haddad Maguire got that first set 6-4, a super performance from her. Swiatek came back second set, 6-love, 6-2. That is brutal, but it really underscores that next level Swiatek has and really showcases signs as that number 1 player and things we've seen of the past from the likes of, say, a Federer, Nadal to Djokovic, where they have those first round lapses, or that first set lapses, and then they pick it up again, which is really impressive to see. Okay, that wraps up the WTA Tour and their results, and it's now time to dive right back in to the ATP Tour and the results so far in Madrid, but we are going to start in the first round and go all the way through. All right, let's dive in. Sonegro over Gasquet, 2-5 first round. Gasquet qualified, great to see him still around, but Sonegro was too good. Kotov over Ramos, Vinolas, straight sets. Jarry and Thompson both got buys. Caboli over Tipolo, 3 sets. Bautista Agut was a lucky loser, 3 sets win over Galan. We've got Menzik over Huffman, straight sets. Ogor Elisame, 3 sets over Nishioka. We've got Nori and Manarino, both with buys. Fonseca over Mitchelton, 3 sets. Kekanovic over Zhang, 6-3, 6-2. Analdi over O'Connell, 4-1. Purcell over Garon, 3 sets. Caraballas Baena over Kofa, 3 sets. Macaque over Russavori, 3 sets. Then we've got Nadal, we know the result, over Blanche, 6-1, 6-love. That was really exciting. Kashin over Offner, 3-3. Medjikovic over Kokanovic, 3 sets. As always, I really do apologize for my pronunciation. I do try my best, but each and every episode I do try to, I think, find a bit to share that, because it is not going to be perfect. but it's important for those of you who I have mispronounced your name to know that it's definitely not intentional. I do try to pronounce to my best abilities. All right, Montenegro over Lajovic, 3 sets. Kokkinakis, he qualified but he fell to Draper in 3. Altama over Laducci, 1 and 5. Then we've got Van Ash over Burgess, 3 sets. Dardaria, very good win over Monfils, 4 and 2. That is somewhat surprising, especially because we are on clay, but very good for Dadari. And then we've got, wrapping up those first round results, we've got Klein over Lamas Ruiz, 3 sets. Marazan over Katasev, 7-6, 7-6. That is a brutal result, but well done to Marazan. Shapovalov over Diaz Acosta, 3 sets. This is Shapovalov's first round win, but it is going to track because we know Shapovalov has been inside the top 10. He has regressed quite substantially, but this is where he is making a mark again, and it's really a positive note to see. Koric over Hassan in 3 sets. Nakashima fell to Bagnes 6-3, 7-6. Shang over Mute, 3 sets. And finishing up first round results, we've got Daniel over Vukic in 3. Navone over Poprin in straight sets, 7-5, 6-2. Van der Zan Schulf over Eubanks, 3 and 3. Muna over Borges in straight sets. Saboth Wild over Sorfelin in straight sets. Shevchenko over Rindenech, 6-4, 5-7, 6-3. That wraps up those first round results with some tongue twisters in there. But let's get into the nitty gritty now, because a number of players did have buys in the first round. So we'll see them now in action in the second round. Here we go. Alcaraz over Shevchenko, 2 and 1. Saboth Wild, a very good win over Musetti, 4 and 4. Struff over Munar, straight sets. Van der Schelt did fall to Humbert, straight sets. Rune, good win over Navone. That was 3 tight sets. Greekenspor over Daniel, 3 sets. Davidovich Fokina over Shang, 7-5, 6-3. Rublev over Bagnes, 1 and 4. Zverev over Koric, straight sets. Shapovalov over Echeverry, a very good win. Echeverry's the 26th seed. Shapovalov's on his way back. Underscore 7-6, 6-3. Sharalondo over Marazan, straight sets. Paul over Klein in 3 sets. Fritz, good win over Darderi, a 7-6, 6-4. Baez over Van Ash in 3 tight sets. Altama over Phil, straight sets. Hercax over Draper, 6-1, 7-5. Tsitsipas fell second round to Monteiro, 4 and 4. Super surprising. Let's remember though, the last 2 weeks Tsitsipas has made the finals with Rudd. He won 2 weeks ago, then he was a finalist 1 week ago. So it has been absolutely jam-packed. So this is not surprising. However, it would have been ideal for him to maintain that level. I would say probably 2 seasons ago he would have maintained that level. But given this season he's been struggling with that form up until the last month, this is not too much of a regressive sign. Let's see what happens next week if he's able to refine that form that he's found once again. Medvedev fell to Lakeka, 7-5, 6-4. Cashin over Tiafoe, that's a very good win, 7-6, 3-6, 6-4. Tiafoe has not been playing arguably that level we know he's capable of, closer towards a top 10 tennis ranking. But so this is a little bit regressive for Tiafoe, but we have not seen, I think, those peak performances from him so far this season. Nadal over Diminor, this was incredibly substantial, 7-6, 6-3. How can you argue with that? We know Alex has had a tremendous season. He has been a barrier breaker. He's on the cusp of the top 10, potentially will be inside the top 10 soon thereafter. But Nadal, it is just great to see him back in action. de Minaur was definitely favourite, and I believe he did say Nadal really did bring his game. We're starting to see once again that level we know Nadal is capable of, and we absolutely love seeing. That said, we know this is Nadal's, I think, last time playing Madrid, but a very still solid performance from Nadal, but de Minaur is still, we know, a substantial player. Shelton over Macaque, very good win for Shelton, 0-2. We know Shelton does have a clay title under his belt so far this season, so this is not that much surprising. A very solid win. Bublik over Caraballas Baena, 3 sets. Korda over Purcell, straight sets. Medvedev over Analdi, 3 sets. Rudd over Kekmanovic, straight sets. So he has been able to hold his own and a level of maintenance in contrast to Tsitsipas, which is really interesting to note. Norrie over Fonseca, straight sets. Auger Elisame over Manarino, 6-love, 6-4. That is a really solid win for Felix, because he's been trying to get these wins back to back, and he's even been qualifying in some instances, but these 2 back-to-back wins are going to be super helpful for his ranking. Menzik, a very good win over Dimitrov, 3 sets. Kakanakov over Bautista Agut, 3 sets. Kaboli over Jarry, 3 sets. Kotov over Thompson in 3, and Sinner, nice and clean, over Senegro. All right, let's head on over to the 3rd round. Ready? Sinner over Kotov, and yes, I'm going up, down, 6-2, 7-5. Kaboli fell to Kakanakov, 7-5, 6-4. Agor Elisame, another very good win over Menzik, 6-1, but it was 1-love. Menzik must have retired there, but still, that is 3 solid wins so far for Felix. That is going to serve his ranking very well, and we should see Felix nudging potentially inside the top 30 once again when the new rankings come out next week. Rudd over Norrie, 2-4. Medvedev over Korda, 5-7, 7-6, 6-3. Bublik got a very good win over Shelton, 3-6, 7-6, 6-4. Nadal, another good win over Cashin, 6-1, 6-7, 6-3. That was really brutal, because 7-6 in that second tie set, so that tie break going to Cashin was a little bit concerning, but seeing Nadal come back in the 3rd was incredibly rewarding. Lecheka over Monteiro, 4-7-6. Hercax over Altima, straight sets. Fritz over Baez, straight sets. Paul fell to Serenundov in 3 sets. Shapovalov fell to Zverev, 6-4, 7-5. Still a very good performance for Shapovalov for this event. Rublev, good win over Davidovich Fokina, 7-6, 6-4. That tie break was 12-10. Greek and Sport over Rune, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. This underscores Rune regressing outside the top 10. This was predicted so far this season, and it did come to fruition the last couple of weeks. We're looking at Rune getting those wins back to back, but he was part of that 50% of the top 10 susceptible to regressing outside, and that has been a consequence that has happened because his results have not been aligning with his ranking, nor those key metrics that we're looking for. If he's able to maintain that peak performance and string together those wins, we will see Rune back inside the top 10, but for now he has regressed, so he is on the cusp once again hovering. We need to see a level of consistency back. Struff over Humbert in straight sets, and Alcaraz, a very good win, 3-3 over Save Both Wild. Okay, time for the round of 16, and I've touched on this previously with the women's draw, but this is really, I think, a pivotal moment when we're looking at players and we're looking at their results, because we know this baseline, we know how this presents and shares this new level of play and a level of maintenance. So for Ruud, for example, before I get to his results, when we're looking at, I think, the correlations there with Tsitsipas, both of them have made the finals the last two clay events. Tsitsipas getting the first win, then Ruud getting the last, but Ruud has made the round of 16 in contrast to Tsitsipas. So this is an example here. Gore, for example, she made the round of 16 even though she fell, but at least we know round of 16 they were able to make the cut. It is an absolute minimum, let's say 75 to 80% of the time for a top 10 player to make the round of 16. More often than not, we understand the glitches and the glimps and the periodization and how you need to give a bit and not have an absolute peak every given event. That we know that's not realistic or conducive to a player's game. So these results really do count, and when we look to next week and the rest of the month, the level of maintenance, is it at round of 16 or further? And to learn more about these metrics, the What Is Your Game Missing series and the 7 Keys to Optimize Your Life really unpacks this and the data. So to dive in and learn more, I really would encourage you to get your hands on those 3-4 texts. All right, Sinner, 3 sets over Kakanakov. That was tough, but really good to see. Gore, Alyssa May over Ruud, 6-4, 7-5. This is definitely, it has to push Felix back inside the top 30, which is really great to see. And that's an absolute stellar win over Ruud, who arguably with Tsitsipas are the 2 in-form players inside the top 10 this season on clay, alongside Sinner and Alcaraz. But we know with the recent results, it has to be Tsitsipas, Ruud, Sinner, Alcaraz on clay. Just the last 2 to 3 weeks have those two crept up. But now we're seeing Sinner and Alcaraz push away once again, alongside Medvedev, of course, because Felix with this win pushes Ruud out of contention. Here we go. Medvedev over Bublik. So quietly and subtle under the radar here. 7-6, 6-4. Nadal did fall to Lecheka a short time ago. 7-5, 6-4. Lecheka, too good for Nadal. Nadal's had a tremendous tournament. It is incredibly sad that it's going to be his last one, but all I can say is that probably what each and every one of you is thinking is there are almost no words to describe Nadal simultaneously with Federer in different ways. He's been remarkable, and I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to say goodbye to him just yet. But this is he made the round of 16, which is a really stellar result. All right, Fritz over Hurkacz, 7-6, 6-4. That's actually a really solid win for Fritz, especially Hurkacz, who's been pretty well informed so far this season, or in correlation with his top 10 ranking. So Fritz, we know, has been pushed outside of the top 10, is on the cusp once again. He has been able to string some wins together more recently, so this is actually a quite positive sign for him. Zverev fell to Cerundo, 3-4, somewhat surprising. Let's see how far Cerundo can go. 21st seeds, so not hugely surprising, but granted Zverev's the 4th seed, that is a very big hit as far as he's concerned. Rublev over Griekenspor, 2-4, and Alcaraz a very good win over Struff, but look, that was 3 tight sets. 6-3, 6-7, 7-6. That is incredibly brutal. But let's remember, Struff did win his maiden title, I think it was last week or the week before. I do not have that in front of me. So Struff was always going to be a dark horse, a serious contender. He is the 23rd seed, so we know where he's had that level, but he didn't have a title to his name previously. So this is really exciting to see Struff still bringing it and making it to the round of 16. Okay, as far as the quarters are concerned, the men's are yet to play. That will be reported on next week. So that really wraps up Madrid. And oh my goodness, has today's episode been absolutely jam-packed with results. There was so much in there, especially in regards to earlier on, the anomaly, pulling together those peak performances, that the argument around the 10,000, that level of autonomy, but also freeing up that headspace as well. And to dive into that and to learn more, there are so many blogs. There are over 80, I think there's roughly around 90 plus, almost 100 blog pieces, articles that I've specifically written around these episodes throughout the course of the last, I want to say 9 months. And they are absolutely free for you to read. And they are really, I think, new insights that complement each and every text. So if you get through all of them and you have a really good understanding, then you know that next step is to get your hands on at least one of the books and then to work your way through. If you already have your hands on one of the books, or 2 or 3 or potentially 11 or all 12, if that's the case, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. But use those articles in conjunction with to push your game forward. If you can read an article a day over the next 2-3 months, it will serve you so incredibly well. You will be ready to pick up the phone and give me a call directly with the details on AIMA International, and I will nudge you closer towards that top 10 tennis ranking. Or if you are ranked inside the top 10, watch out for that maiden Grand Slam, because as soon as you have that knowledge base, which is so incredibly extensive, with those articles and the 11 texts, I can guarantee you are primed if you've been putting in the work. And all it takes is that extra few nudges, which is where I come in, to nudge you closer and closer towards not only that top 10 tennis ranking, that maiden Grand Slam, or the replicated success, whether that's your 3rd, 4th or 5th, or in Djokovic's case, I think he's going to be up to 25 now. Oh my goodness, keeping tracks is absolutely phenomenal. But on a final note, to wrap up today's episode, we've got Madrid. It's really exciting, setting up the platform, especially for Roland Garros, and the Olympics were just around the corner, and soon thereafter, we know in the space of the next 2-3 months, we've got Wimbledon then. It's a really big jam-packed season, so there will be so much more coming out. But look, at the end of the day, we are really looking at developing that top 10 tennis ranking, the work that's involved, how these results and the rankings that we typically touch on really, I think, correlate with key performances, those metrics, what you need to, I think, integrate into your game, get your hands on the 7 keys, integrate then the 8th key to amplify your game to progress you towards that top 10 tennis ranking. Thank you so much for listening today. Look, I think the last couple of minutes there, wrapping up today's episodes, is so important to know where we've been, where we're going, the beginning of the episode, how we're using those results to inform those rankings, to progress towards the top 10, to win that maiden Grand Slam, or to maintain that top 10 tennis ranking. It is a lot harder than I think most give credit for, because that level of maintenance is absolutely phenomenal, especially considering at the moment on both tours, 50% of players are susceptible to regressing. So if you're currently a top 10 player and you do not want to regress outside the top 10, and you fall with that 50% who are currently susceptible to regressing outside the top 10, those articles are absolutely fundamental, and even more so, my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, alongside the rest of the collection. On that note though, to grab your copy of my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, head on over to AMA International or head on over to Amazon, irrespective where you're based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AMA International or Topic Thread, the social platform set on data privacy. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to Twitter, Instagram or YouTube. To catch up on our blogs, head on over to AMA International and look for our blog tab, or head on over to Medium. And as always, I'll leave all the links in the episode notes. For something different, head on over to Pink Octopus Books. That's where my fictional release is. For something left of field, visit Spruik for some random polls. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above would be absolutely phenomenal. For those of you who are interested, we do have scholarships available on AMA International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to optimize your performance and to nudge you closer towards that top 10 tennis ranking. So don't be shy and come and say hi. On that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.